The Silent Watcher. Chapter 1. An Unsettling Welcome. I stepped off the bus and onto the cracked asphalt of Main Street, feeling like a relic from another time. The familiar quaint town of Willow Creek was just as I remembered, the old oak tree standing tall outside the diner, its branches stretching towards the sky like gnarled fingers. The worn benches by the river where I used to share secrets with my best friend Emily. And even the dusty bookshop on the corner still boasted a faded sign reading Whispering Pages. But as much as it looked the same, something felt different. A chill crept up my spine as I pulled my suitcase behind me toward home. Mom's house, where the porch creaked underfoot with every step. The first night back, after unpacking what seemed like centuries of luggage, I settled into a worn armchair on the front porch. The evening air was thick with humidity and cicadas. My gaze drifted across the street to the empty houses that lined our quiet street before slipping shut, their windows dark as mouths. As my eyes closed, an inexplicable sense of unease washed over me. An unmistakable feeling of being watched. I forced it aside, attributing it to exhaustion from the long journey home. However, when a second glance confirmed no one was there, the sensation lingered like a shadow. A shiver ran down my spine, and I checked the time on my phone. 8:47 p.m. Too early for insomnia. Next evening, I opted for a walk through town to clear my head after an unsettling night's sleep. The streets were empty, but for one car, a rusted sedan trailing behind me at a cautious distance. My pulse quickened as it turned on an elm before I lost sight of the vehicle around the bend. Shaking off unease, I continued along Oakwood Avenue, fingers tracing the weathered wooden benches we used to occupy by the river. On my return, I spotted the same car parked near the library. Heart pounding in my ears, I quickened my pace. The sedan accelerated and pulled away as I neared my house. Days passed, each one marked by increasingly unsettling events. My room was turned upside down, clothes scattered across the floor, books knocked from shelves, and a whisper that sounded like run carried on the wind at night. A visit to Whispering Pages revealed more than just nostalgia. Whispers among hushed patrons spoke of a similar phenomenon decades ago. The librarian leaned in close, a silent watcher haunting the town. She warned me not to dwell on it, but her words lingered long after I left. Chapter 2. The Creeping Dread. The days blended together like autumn leaves underfoot. More items went missing. Photographs and my mother's antique locket, a family heirloom. Each night, the whispering persisted, more audible now, echoing from the shadows. I pored over those old news clippings at the library until a faint image caught my eye, a picture of a teenager with an unnerving stare in the background. Eyes that seemed to follow you. The paper crumpled in my hands as understanding clicked into place. It was him, the Watcher, a local legend long forgotten. I sought out Mrs. Jenkins, now an elderly woman who had witnessed the original events firsthand. Her porch light flickered on, casting shadows across her face when she opened the door. "You shouldn't have come back," she muttered before letting me inside. Over steaming tea, she recounted tales of eerie happenings and unexplained disappearances tied to the mysterious figure. Her eyes glinted with a knowing intensity as I asked about his appearance. The same man in the photograph with piercing eyes. A chill ran down my spine when she described him wearing a black trench coat. As if on cue, a gust through the open window carried the unmistakable scent of wet earth and leaves. It was then that I noticed her reflection shatter. Just for an instant, that night, huddled in darkness with the flashlight's beam skimming over the news clippings, a loud thud from upstairs broke my concentration. My heart stuttered as I crept toward the source. The bedroom door hung slightly ajar. A single, blood-stained shoe lay on the floor, paired with my favorite book. Its cover shredded and mangled pages splayed about it. In that moment, the truth poked at me like an insidious insect crawling up my spine. I backed away slowly, but froze when shadows shifted in the corner. My breath caught as two hollow eyes reflected back. The watcher stood before me, faceless in a tattered trench coat. Chapter 3. The Final Confrontation. In the dim light, he remained motionless. It was then that his hand rose and beckoned to me. Heart hammering out of rhythm, I approached cautiously. His fingers curled around my wrist, leading me through streets both familiar and foreign. We reached a crumbling barn at the outskirts of town, where a single chair sat atop planks of wood. He gestured for me to sit. "What do you want?" My voice cracked. "You were supposed to stay away," he rasped, face obscured by shadows. I left. His hand dropped, and I expected reprieve, but his form shifted closer, revealing sunken cheeks and a gaunt figure cloaked in darkness. He reached the edge of the chair before me. "The town needed you." A cold sweat beaded down my back as he sat beside me, but falling away to reveal a woman I recognized. Emily's mother, long since dead. "We have questions," she said. The watcher pulled off a mask, her face aged and weathered. "We? Who are we?" Her voice cracked with an unnatural tone. The Whispering Pages proprietor approached, followed by a handful of townsfolk. "You see, Alex, your return stirred something." He leaned in to whisper against my ear, a hunger long buried. My world shattered as I stared at the group, each face twisted into grotesque visages. Emily's mother, Mrs. Jenkins, and more. They had been watching for their chance all these years. The watcher spoke up again. The quiet one who left is needed to set them free. In a trance-like state, I drove through the night and found an old journal from that period. Emily's writing revealed her mother was possessed by something malevolent. A ritual to banish it lay within. Under moonlight, I gathered items as instructed. Returning, they formed a circle around me. The air grew heavy. My voice trembled as I read aloud the incantation. A blinding light enveloped us, and the creature's wail shattered glass and sanity. Emily's mother slumped in the dirt, eyes black as coal, teeth sharp as knives. The townspeople began to burn, faces contorted into those same unnatural visages they had worn earlier. In a final act of mercy, I smashed her head with a fire poker before turning on my heel. My reflection stared back from the library's mirror, face twisted in anguish. I stood frozen, eyes black as coal. The cycle broke when I shattered it, shattering my own mask. In the end, it was Emily who greeted me, alive and unharmed. Together we laid her mother to rest. We walked home under a moon new dawn, the watcher's presence a haunting shadow at our backs. The door creaked open on its own as if calling us in. Inside, my reflection sat in the chair I'd left hours ago, Emily by my side. I looked upon an unrecognizable face. My own, once home to Emily's mother. "We're trapped now." I met her gaze and whispered a promise. In a burst of light, we shattered, leaving only our shadows behind, forever bound as one, silent observers of horrors past and present. Our faces merged into a grotesque fusion, the mask of the Watcher, together eternally watching in silence. I closed the door on that night, sealing ourselves within darkness, bound to keep secrets. As the moon began to set, I saw them all. Our town's history laid bare, forever trapped between life and death, reflecting the horrors we'd witnessed. In a silent pact, my identity was subsumed by the Watcher, leaving Emily with no face at all, forever locked in an abyss of silence as well. The next morning found me alone on that chair, mask gone, but not forgotten.